your synagogue in the best location in town. So usually when you want to make a new synagogue, or you make it just where the previous synagogue used to be. So the synagogues always rebuilt on the same spot. Now, the archaeologists, the Franciscan Brotherhood archaeologists, excavated over here, and they found this foundation, which belonged to an earlier synagogue, yet not from Jesus' time. We think that if one day somebody will excavate even lower than that, he will find Jesus' time synagogue. But the architectural elements that we showed you at the entrance, they came from the 1st century synagogue that used to be right here. So not as big and not as beautiful as this one, but that same location. And I just want to remind you, this is where Jesus entered in the day of Shabbat, and he was recognized by the impure spirit. Yes? And it's incredible that Jesus starts his ministry with cleaning the impure spirits from this wall. And the possessed man is the first one, the demon is the first one to recognize Jesus. And this is where Jesus later taught, I am the bread of life. So you are, let's say it's an A site, or probably most likely 99% that you are right on a spot where it's happened. Okay? So a very, very good A site, maybe A minus. Another thing that we want to tell you before we have a seat over there, this is the decorations over here. The synagogue was highly decorated. This is from the 4th century. I have so much more I want to tell you about synagogue in Jesus' time, but I'm not going to do it here. Because later, God willing, we are going to Magdala, and we're going to see an authentic Jesus' time synagogue. So whatever we have to tell you more about synagogue, we're going to tell you there. Just for the moment, they didn't pray in the synagogue in Jesus' time. They were teaching the commandments, and that was the community center of the Jewish community. And that's why Jesus was teaching in all the synagogues in this area. That's the place for gathering. Okay? So Jesus was teaching in all the synagogues in the Sea of Galilee area.
Unpack the word synagogue.
It's called Beit Knesset, house of gathering. And it was already exist when the temple was exist. So far we discovered 138 synagogues all over. The oldest ones are going back to the 2nd century BC, from the Hasmonean time. And we know about 10 synagogues that were exist during the Second Temple days. Okay, we know about 10 synagogues that we know of from the archaeological perspective that were exist during the Second Temple days. It means that the synagogues did not replace the temple. It was a supplementary activity to the temple. Okay, but we continue. What we see over here, this restoration was done quite badly. You can see the use of concrete. You can see that this Corinthian style capital is supposed to be up there, this column. So this is the use of concrete and all that. So the restoration over here was done very badly. But imagine mosaic middle floor over here, another mosaic floors on both sides. One, it's basilica-shaped building, a middle hall and 2 side halls, 2 the columns, and 2nd floor gallery. The 2nd floor was just a gallery allowing the air and light in. Okay, so what you see here, again, it's from the 4th century AD, but Jesus' time synagogue was probably, or is probably still buried under your feet.
And what time frame did you say this one likely
This is
was?
3rd century AD, according to the coins that were found there.
Okay.
Friends, if you'd like to have a seat over here, we want to tell you. I know today is a lot of information. Usually I don't have even the chance to teach in the synagogue because it's so crowded. I always teach under the trees over there.
Sorry.
Just it's so cool to teach in the synagogue. Come on. But again, it depends if the synagogue is after the temple was destroyed or before it was destroyed, because the southern wall became the most important because this turning to the direction of the temple. So after the temple was destroyed, all the synagogues that were built were oriented to the direction of the temple.
Prison, he departed unto Galilee, and leaving Nazareth, he came and dwelt in Capernaum, which is upon the sea coast, in the borders of Zebulun and Naphtali, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, This land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali by the way of the sea, beyond Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles. And the people which sat in darkness saw a great light. And to them which sat in the region and in the shadow of death, light is sprung up. From that time Jesus began to preach and to say, Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand.
Thank you so much. When Jesus heard that John had been put to prison, so we already commented about this. I'm just going to remind you some of the things that we already said on the bus. By the land of the sea, the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali. So remember, we are right on the way of the sea. In the land of Zebulun, that's the Galilee. The land of Naphtali, that's the Sea of Galilee area. The one who walk in darkness. We already mentioned it. Remember when Jesus, around the time that Jesus was born, when Herod the Great died, there was a revolt against the Romans. And the Roman Syrian governor Varus came and murdered thousands in the Galilee and Jerusalem. And the people of the Galilee were taken to slavery, murdered, and the women were raped. And the kids were taken. So the one who walks in darkness shall see a great light. So this is the background. But he started his ministry in the age of 30 years old. In this age, a priest will start serving God in the temple in Jerusalem. And he was active here around the Sea of Galilee for almost 3 years, between two major events in his life, being baptized or immersed by John the preacher at the Jordan River, where we've been yesterday, and the crucifixion in Jerusalem. And this is all started after John was put to prison. And before we want to talk about the meaning of those miracles, and again, it's going to take me about another 6 or 7 minutes over here with your permission. We want to speak about, maybe 8 or 9. We want to speak about who's John. So, because it's all started after John was put to prison. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everybody. Who's John? And by the way, we're only asking questions that you may know the answers.
Jesus' cousin.
Jesus' cousins, that's true. What else? Who is John?
Messenger.
He's the messenger, also true. What else?
Prophet.
He's a prophet, also true. What else? I'm fishing for an answer.
Voice crying in the wilderness.
He's Jewish,
Priest.
crying in the wilderness. Got it. How do you know?
Because it says so.
Because Jesus said so. Always a good answer. So, the disciples asked, okay, so that's what I want to talk about before we go and talk about Yeshua here. The last book of the Old Testament is the book of Malachi. And he was the last prophet. And since the day of Malachi, everybody were praying for God to send us a new prophet like Moses. You know, Deuteronomy 18:18. Again, it's a reading recommendation for you. Deuteronomy 18:18. God speaks about, I will send them a prophet like you. To him you should listen to. And it's not my reading recommendation, it's Peter reading the recommendation. Peter recommended the people to go and read Deuteronomy 18. When Peter was speaking at the temple in Jerusalem, preaching to the people of Jerusalem, he told them, he quoted from Deuteronomy 18. You remember? God told Moses, I will send them a prophet like you. Here it is. So I'm recommending you, or Peter recommends you, to go and read again Deuteronomy 18:18. God promised he will send them a prophet like Moses, and to him they should listen to in all the things. So the last book of the Old Testament was a book of Malachi. And the last sentence of the last book of the last prophet of the Old Testament says, I will send you Elijah before the great day of the Lord will come. Same Elijah that was raptured to heaven. Remember yesterday we were at Qasr el-Yahud by the Jordan River? That's the place where Elijah went to heaven with chariots of fire. And Elisha saw it, his successor Elisha saw it. So it's interesting that the same place where Elijah going up to heaven, that's the same place where John the Baptist is preaching. And the disciples, when they understood that Jesus is the one, they asked Jesus, if you're the one, where is Elijah? Why? Because what we just said. They knew Elijah must come before the one. And Jesus told them it was John by the Spirit. But people didn't recognize him. Okay? Wait a minute. How are you supposed to recognize Elijah? There was no Facebook back then. How are you supposed to recognize Elijah? God took care of it. If you go to the Old Testament, the only figure that the Bible tells us his outside appearance is Elijah. We don't know how Moses looked like. We don't know how Aaron looked like. We don't know how Joshua looked like. But we do know how Elijah looked like. Because somebody was looking for Elijah and he found a man in the road. Yes, a coincidence. And he asked for directions. Did you see Elijah? And the guy told him, yes, you mean this hairy man with a camel hair mantle and a girdle? Yes, I saw Elijah. He's right there. Now, you don't have stories like this, like somebody looking for instructions and he found a man and he told him you can go there. The only figure that we know how he looks like, it's Elijah. And guess what? The only figure in the New Testament that we know how he looks like is John. And when you take this description, yes, and you compare them, they're identical. Wow. Same description. So Jesus told them it was John by the Spirit. So the book of Malachi, Elijah must come before. By the way, maybe later we're going to talk about it, about the differences between Elijah and John. Because you remember in the Bible, when you have something reminds you something else, you need to compare and to look for the differences. Okay? Elijah was by the power of fire and wrath, and John the Baptist is the power of repentance and grace and the sounds of the silent. But that's another story. So far, so good? Second reading. Please. Yes. Reading involves standing and facing the good.
Okay.
Matthew 11, 1 through 6.
After Jesus had finished instructing his 12 disciples, he went on from there to teach and pray in the towns of Galilee.
Louder.
When John, who was in prison, heard about the deeds of the Messiah, he sent his disciples to ask him, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else?" Jesus replied, "Go back and report to John what you see and hear. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news is proclaimed to the poor. Blessed is anyone who does not stumble on account of me."
Thank you so much. After Jesus has finished instructing the 12 disciples, he went on from there and teach and preach in the towns of the Galilee. When John, who was in prison, heard about the deeds of the Messiah, he sent his disciples to ask him, "Are you the one who is to come, or should we expect someone else?" Remember Deuteronomy 18:18? Yes? So the one to come have to prove himself. First, Deuteronomy 18 will tell you he must teach according to the law, to the word of God. If the Messiah or the prophet teach you something which is not from the Torah, he's a false Messiah. Don't follow him. Second, he must prove himself with great signs. And third, he shall not die. So John sent 2 witnesses. Go and ask Jesus, are you the one? So what Jesus told him, yes, we actually talked about this, the same signs that Isaiah telling us. You were reading that. The lame will dance, the blind will see, the lepers will cleanse, the gospel will preach to the poor. The meaning of all those miracles? Those are signs. Yes? Go and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receives a sight, the lame walk, those who have leprosy are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised, and the good news are proclaimed to the poor. So those 6 are the signs that proves that he is the one you've been waiting for. And we found the same list at the book of Isaiah, and we found the same list at what we call the temple scrolls that were discovered at Qumran. The same list. And just to end with this, we're going to be later today at Mount Beatitudes. Mount Beatitudes, Jesus taught them. Did he teach them a new Torah? If you read the Beatitudes, it's a teaching on the 10 Commandments. He taught them the 10 Commandments, but he gave them a new understanding, a new revelation of the 10 Commandments. In Jerusalem, when the Sadducees gave him to the Romans to be crucified, what was the accusation? Messiah. They tried to prove that he is not. You think that this guy that resurrected Lazarus and cleaned the lepers and did all that, yes, you think that he's the Messiah? No way, man. Look at him. He's dead, crucified, humiliated on the cross. So he can't be the one. Okay, they tried to prove that he is not, and his resurrection proved that he is.